The Waldham Grand Ballroom pulsed with evening opulence. Gold chandeliers dripping light onto marble floors, the city's most powerful drifting through the room as if gravity bowed to their wealth. It was nearly 10, the hour when egos grew bolder and cruelty passed for entertainment. Amid the glitter and glass stood Avery Wynne, quiet in a charcoal dress that contrasted brutally with the extravagance around her. She didn't chase attention. She absorbed the room with a stillness sharper than any spotlight. A sudden shift in energy cut through the music. A woman in a blood-red gown stepped toward her, eyes gleaming with the thrill of humiliation. "Sweetheart, this is a VIP event," she said coldly. "Who let you in?" A man at her side smirked. "She probably wandered in with the catering crew." The words sliced deeper than the laughter rising behind them, a signal that the room had already chosen a side, unaware of the storm they had just invited. What happens next will change everything. If this moment pulls you in, like the video and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales for more powerful stories. The moment the laughter rolled across the ballroom, Avery didn't move. Her hands stayed at her sides, her breath steady in the charged air. The woman in the red gown, Morgan Hale, waited for a reaction that never came. The crowd expected a flinch, a crack, some small sign of embarrassment. Instead, Avery's calm only unsettled them more. The room hummed with whispers, the chandeliers flickering slightly as if uneasy from above. Morgan narrowed her eyes, confused by the stillness in front of her. Beside her, Grant Holloway, co-heir to a manufacturing empire, gave a quiet scoff and raised his glass. "She doesn't even know she's out of her depth," he muttered, just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Avery turned her head slightly, studying them with an expression that neither challenged nor bowed. Her gaze held the quiet authority of someone who had survived rooms harsher than this one. And for the first time that night, Morgan's confidence faltered. Something in Avery's eyes made her feel as if she had walked into the wrong story, one she didn't understand and couldn't control. Still, the crowd waited for humiliation to unfold, hungry for spectacle. The orchestra's soft notes felt thinner, stretched tight over the tension filling the ballroom. Morgan lifted her chin, refusing to lose the attention she'd claimed. "You must be new," she said, voice coated in condescension. "Next time try the door on the side. Staff usually enters there." A few people chuckled, but the sound wavered. Avery didn't answer. She simply stepped aside as a server passed, her movement smooth and dignified. Her silence wasn't submission, it was judgment. And the room felt it. Morgan bristled. "Say something," she demanded, her facade cracking faster than she expected. Avery finally spoke, her voice quiet but unwavering. "Words lose value when used by the wrong people." The murmurs swelled. Grant rolled his eyes, but Morgan's face reddened. Her anger rose quicker than her self-control. She reached for a nearby glass of deep crimson wine. "Then let's make sure you remember your place." Before anyone could intervene, she threw the wine. It splashed across Avery's dress, soaking the charcoal fabric in a violent burst of red. Gasps erupted. Even the orchestra hesitated. Avery closed her eyes for a single heartbeat. When they reopened, something colder, sharper, steadier lived inside them. She didn't shout. She didn't tremble. She stood tall, her dignity shining brighter than the chandeliers above. And that quiet composure unnerved the entire room. Morgan smirked, thinking she'd won. There. Much better. But every witness felt the shift, an almost imperceptible change in the air as if the building itself had taken offense. Avery turned away. No rush, no theatrics. Her steps carried a patience that frightened the people watching more than any outburst would have. She left behind a trail of murmurs and rising discomfort, disappearing through the grand doors without looking back. Moments after she vanished, a tremor ran through the hall, not from movement but from unease. People checked their phones. The event screens flickered. And then the announcement dropped like a stone into still water. Urgent internal notice. Immediate review of Hollowell-Wynne merger. The music died. Morgan's laughter evaporated. Grant stiffened. his usual arrogance thinning into confusion. A second message appeared. Partnership suspended pending inquiry. CEO arrival imminent. For the first time, the entire ballroom felt small. Entrapped. Grant swallowed hard. Who called an inquiry? Nobody does that on a gala night. Morgan forced a shaky laugh. Probably a formality. But her voice wavered. Minutes later, the double doors opened once more. The room pivoted instinctively. A new presence entered, the kind that silenced entire boardrooms. A man in his 60s, sharp suit, silver hair, commanding stride. Charles Wynn, chairman of Wynn Industries. And behind him, advisors, legal counsel, and executives who did not attend galas unless something had gone catastrophically wrong. Morgan's face drained. She grabbed Grant's wrist. Why is he here? Grant didn't answer. He was too busy watching Charles scan the crowd like a judge entering a courtroom. Where is Avery? Charles asked, his tone polite but terrifyingly precise. A few heads turned. Morgan followed their eyes, dread pooling in her chest. Avery, she murmured. Why would he? Then Charles's gaze found her. His expression cooled. Ms. Hale, he said. You seem unsettled. I don't understand what's happening. No. Charles tilted his head. You threw wine on my daughter. The ballroom exploded into stunned whispers. Grant's glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Morgan stood frozen. Daughter. Charles stepped closer. And not just my daughter. The majority shareholder in Wynn Industries. The architect behind our merger tonight. The woman whose signature determines whether your companies rise or fall in the next fiscal year. Morgan swayed. I didn't know. And yet, Charles said softly, you acted as though ignorance were a virtue. Security approached. Not aggressive but definitive. Grant backed away instinctively. We can explain, he sputtered. It was a misunderstanding. She looked like someone beneath you. Charles finished. Yes, you made that clear. One of the Wynn advisors stepped forward with a tablet. Sir, the markets have already reacted. Word of the suspension is spreading. Hollowell shares are down 7%. Grant's voice cracked. 7. That's impossible. The deal wasn't supposed to go public yet. It wasn't, Charles replied. Until your behavior made it necessary. Morgan grabbed Charles's arm in desperation. Please, let me apologize to her. I didn't mean. Charles gently removed her hand. Apologies offered after humiliation aren't apologies. They're self-preservation. The room's silence deepened as he continued. You wanted her to feel small. Instead, you showed everyone how small you are. Security escorted Morgan and Grant out through a side corridor as cameras recorded every second. None of the guests stepped in. None defended them. Wealthy rooms shift loyalty quickly, especially when consequences become visible. Outside, the cold air bit at their skin. Flashing lights from waiting journalists turned the sidewalk into a gauntlet. Ms. Hale, is it true you assaulted the Wynn heir? Mr. Holloway, is your board preparing emergency action? Are you being removed from the company? Morgan tried to push through, but reporters pressed closer. Grant shielded his face, cursing under his breath. And then a black sedan pulled up. Sleek, silent, all authority. The door opened. Avery stepped out. Her posture remained calm, her dress still stained red, but her presence shifted. She walked through the cameras with quiet command, the crowd parting for her instinctively. Morgan's lips trembled. Avery, please. I'm begging you. Don't let this ruin us. Avery stopped in front of her. The world seemed to hold its breath. When you threw wine at me, Avery said softly, you weren't trying to ruin my evening. You were trying to ruin me. Morgan shook her head frantically. No, I didn't know. That I mattered. Avery asked. That someone who looks like me, dresses like me, stands quietly in the back of a room could hold power? Tears welled in Morgan's eyes. Please. I'll do anything. Avery's voice remained steady. You already did everything. And now you're facing what you built. Grant reached forward. Avery, Ms. Wynne, our companies will collapse. Thousands of people. Avery turned to him with a look that cut him silent. My company will survive. Yours will answer to your board. As if summoned, Grant's phone buzzed with a board directive. Emergency vote. Leadership suspension pending. His knees weakened. Morgan covered her face as cameras snapped relentlessly. Avery stepped back toward her father's car. I don't take pleasure in your downfall, she said. But I won't protect people who harm others simply because they believe they can. She opened the door then paused. This is only the beginning. The door closed. The car pulled away. And both Morgan and Grant realized that the night they tried to break someone had become the night that broke them. Their consequences weren't whispers or private reprimands. They unfolded on every screen, in every headline, in every boardroom. And the world watched. That was the price. And their reckoning had only just begun. When the sedan carried Avery through the quiet streets, the city lights washed softly across the windows, reflecting a world she no longer felt the need to fight for recognition in. Tonight had shown her something she hadn't expected. Not how easily people could be cruel, but how small their cruelty became when faced with someone who refused to bend. The calm she carried had once felt like a weakness. Now she understood it differently. Strength didn't always rise with volume. Sometimes it lived in restraint, in choosing dignity over the chaos others tried to provoke. Back at her office, she paused in front of the glass wall overlooking the river. The water moved steadily in the darkness, unhurried, untouched by the noise of the world above it. She found herself breathing easier. She hadn't set out to teach anyone a lesson, yet the truth had found its way to the surface anyway. Quiet power leaves the deepest mark. Somewhere downtown, headlines continued to swirl and consequences continued to unfold. But Avery let them drift from her mind. Tonight wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming her space without ever raising her voice. And as the first light of morning brushed the river in silver, she knew this chapter had closed exactly the way it needed to. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales so we can bring more powerful moments to life together.